Hey everybody, Keith Dotson here, and in this video we're going to talk about one of my other great passions besides photography, and that's history, or in this case prehistory, and we are visiting the Etowah Mound site in northeast Georgia. Etowah was a Mississippian era mound building site. Here you can see a model of the village inside the museum, which is excellent and well worth a visit. You can see the river on the left, the village. At top you can see the Great Plaza, and at bottom a replica of the wall that was around the palisade wall. The site has a really beautiful reconstruction of what the huts probably look like, and these were called wattle and daub huts, which means they built the walls out of woven sticks and then put an adobe-like mud surface over that. As you can see, really well done thatched roof with a hole in the middle that allowed smoke from the centralized hearth to go out through the top. Really beautifully done, and helps you kind of visualize what the village must have looked like to a certain extent. The Mississippian culture ran from approximately 900 AD to about 1600 AD. It was the last Native American culture before the Europeans came, and we go into the historic era of Native Americans, which are the tribes that we all know about. Here we're walking across the Grand Plaza and looking at the tallest mound on the site, which is Mound A, or the Great Mound. It's approximately 6 stories tall. On top was a shelter that was probably home for the chief. Mississippian culture was a chieftain society, and a lot of the symbols that we see, including the gorgets, which were represented on those wood carvings as the video started, they were all designed to symbolize and maintain power of the chief. Here we are on top of Mound A. This is where the structures would have been, where the chief would have lived. Looking down the steps onto the Grand Plaza. Etowah had 3 large mounds and a couple of smaller mounds. Here we're looking over to Mound C, which was a burial mound, and it's been the most excavated and has produced a lot of artifacts. Again, Mound A on our right as the rain starts to come down. When I visit places like this, I think about the kinship I feel with the people who lived here, but I know if I were to suddenly drop into a Mississippian village, I'd probably get an arrow in my face right away. Here we are on top of Mound B, which was a temple mound, also had a structure on top. And there you see Mound C again, the burial mound. And over there is the rain-swollen Etowah River. Rivers were important for Mississippian villages because, of course, they provided water and fish and, food source, but they also were a source of travel, trade, because the Mississippian era, they did a lot of trading with each other. I look at this river and I imagine canoes of Native Americans floating downstream, carrying goods. You can't see it. I'm not sure exactly what they have here because it's so flooded, but there were apparently 100 fish dams on this river when the village was here. And those were stone structures that they used. They were basically a V-shaped structure that trapped fish and allowed the Native Americans to more easily catch them in baskets. Of course, the river also provided somewhat of a natural barrier against enemies, and the Mississippian era was a very warlike time. That's why they had palisade walls in every Mississippian village. To me, these are the real stars of the show. These are 2 very beautifully done marble sculptures that were carved and probably worshipped on this site. We have a male and a female pair, which means they were probably venerated as ancestral figures, possibly the founders of the village. For some mysterious reason, they were dumped into a hole and buried. Scholars think it might have been some kind of a cataclysm, maybe they don't really know. But for some reason, they were dumped into a hole and buried. And the male figure actually suffered a broken arm, which apparently has been repaired quite well. It's really hard to tell that he was ever damaged. You can see they still have pigments on their faces and bodies. You see their hair knots and their hairstyles. Gives us an idea of what they must have looked like in the day when they wore their native garments. When I first started learning about Mississippian culture, I had no idea that Native Americans carved stone statues like this. The museum has a lot of really beautiful artifacts, including, of course, spearheads and arrowheads and stone tools, and a lot of ceremonial tools and things that were, axes that weren't for battle. They were just to symbolize the power of the chieftain. They have a lot of things like this display that show ceremonial items, many of which were imported in the expansive trade networks, and the map kind of shows where some of the things came from. In addition to stone sculptures, they also made clay effigy figures like these, which were found at Etowah. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope this whets your appetite a little bit for Mississippian culture. Hope you'll visit some of the mound sites. There are a lot of them around the United States, through the Midwest and the Southeast, even as far up north as Wisconsin, Astalon, which I've been to. If you want to learn more, visit my blog post, which I will link in the description below. I've done a lot of research and a lot of studying and learning about Mississippian culture. And I talk a little bit more about Etowah in that blog post, so please visit.